All right. Hello, everyone, and welcome to tonight's community meeting for the Needham-Newton Corridor Project. My name is Chuck Labby, and I am the Assistant District Construction Engineer on this project. Before we get started, I want to introduce Reagan Checchio, the facilitator for tonight's meeting.
Thank you, Chuck. As Chuck mentioned, my name is Reagan Checchio, and I'm the facilitator for tonight. Next slide. I do want to review a few technical aspects of the Zoom platform before we get to the main presentation. If you're viewing this meeting on a computer, you can toggle speaker view to see the presentation more prominently. If you are on a smartphone, you can swipe to change views. You may use the Q&A button to submit a typed question or comment at any point during the meeting. We will be monitoring Q&A during the presentation, but ask that you hold substantive comments and questions until the question and answer session that we're having later. If you have a technical problem, you can share your issue in the Q&A feature at any point, and someone will respond as quickly as possible. The questions you submit will not be visible to attendees once submitted, but we will read them during the Q&A portion of the meeting. And during that portion of the meeting, you will also be able to use the raise hand feature to ask questions verbally. I'll note that if you want to call into the meeting, you can call us at 309-205-3325. The webinar ID is 837-0769-0558. You can also view closed captions by clicking the captions feature and selecting from the options shown. Show subtitle will display a caption at the bottom of the screen, while view full transcript will display the meeting's audio transcription in a window to the right. Next slide. I also would like to remind everyone that the meeting is being recorded tonight. All attendees are muted during the presentation to prevent excessive background noise and accidental interruption. But as I noted earlier, there will be a Q&A session at the end of the presentation. Finally, a survey will automatically display at the end of this meeting. Please fill it out. Your feedback is important to us. Next slide. All MassDOT activities, including public meetings, are free of discrimination. MassDOT complies with all federal and state civil rights requirements, preventing discrimination based on sex, race, color, ancestry, national origin, including limited English proficiency, religion, creed, gender, sexual orientation, gender identity or expression, or veteran status. We welcome the diversity from across our entire service area. If you have any questions or concerns, please visit mass.gov/non-discrimination-in-transportation-program to reach the Office of Diversity and Civil Rights. Next slide. I also want to take a brief moment to thank everyone who helped share information about this meeting, including but not limited to the City of Newton, the Town of Needham, Charles River Chamber of Commerce, area libraries, and many, many more. They are listed on this screen, and actually, if you could advance the slide, and on that screen as well. So I want to thank everyone for your help in publicizing this meeting. And now I'm going to turn it back over to Chuck, who will begin the main presentation. Chuck?
Thank you, Reagan. I would now like to review the agenda for tonight. Welcomes and introductions, followed by a recap of project goals and benefits, a progress update, a preview of upcoming work, and a questions and answers session. Next slide. First, we're going to talk about why the project was initiated. Next slide. The Needham-Newton Corridor Project is utilizing a multimodal design approach to improve conditions for all users. The project limits extend from the intersection of Highland Avenue and Webster Street in Needham and the intersection of Winchester Street and Route 9 in Newton. Next slide. Our project goals and benefits. They are, first goal is to improve pedestrian accommodations by providing continuous designated sidewalks and designated crosswalks. Second goal, to provide bicycle accommodations by providing a 5-foot wide raised bike lane with shared use path connections. Third goal, to improve traffic operations and safety by adding and expanding exclusive turn lanes and two-way left turn lanes. Our fourth goal was to improve transit by adjusting the locations to optimize service. Next slide. And now I'd like to introduce Mike Smith from PGOso and Sons, the project contractor, who will discuss how the project will impact road users.
Thanks, Chuck. So as Chuck mentioned, my name is Mike Smith. I'm the project manager for PGOso and Sons. We're the general contractor for this project, and I'm going to run you through all the construction to date and how it all affects everybody. So our typical work shift is Monday through Friday, 7 a.m. to 3:30 p.m. each day. We do not have lane closures during peak traffic hours, which are 6 a.m. to 9 a.m. and 3 p.m. to 7 p.m. When necessary, night work is typically performed from 9 p.m. to 5 a.m. Sunday through Thursday. Additional night work for milling, paving operations, and bridge reconstruction will be necessary. 2 weeks advance notice will be provided before this work begins. The night work is necessary to lessen the roadway impacts during peak traffic hours. Driveway, pedestrian, and bicycle access will be maintained at all times. Next slide. So the construction progress to date. Next slide. For utility work, the utility companies continue with the utility relocations, including conduits and poles. 60% of all the overhead and underground utility relocations have been completed to date. The water main requested by the city of Newton is now complete, which included 5,300 feet of 20-inch water main and services. The drainage work throughout the entire corridor is now 100% complete. In the roadway, 5 retaining walls that were necessary to complete the project have been installed, which is about 70% of all the retaining walls for the project. Next slide. In Needham, on Highland Ave from Webster to Hunting Road and Gould, the installation of curbs and sidewalks are 99% complete. The traffic signal work is 100% complete, and the drainage work is also 100% complete. On Highland Ave from Wexford to the bridge over the Charles River, the full depth road reconstruction has been completed, and the first 2 courses of paving have been installed. The traffic signal infrastructure in this stretch is 95% complete, and the drainage work through this stretch is all complete. Next slide. In moving on to Newton, on Needham Street from Oak Christina down to Route 9, the drainage installation and the water main, as I pointed out, is now complete. The underground traffic signal infrastructure work is about 50% complete. And at the bridge over the Charles River, the utility duct bank relocations have been completed. The temporary support system is complete. And the phase 1 reconstruction on the east side of the bridge is about 70% complete. Next slide. This spring, what you will see, the utility companies will be continuing with the relocations of the overhead wire at the new utility poles in all of Newton. We plan to complete the paving and install pavement markings and signage from Wexford Street to the bridge over the Charles River in Needham. We're going to start full depth road reconstruction and paving along Winchester Street from Curtis to the project limit at Center Street. And we'll begin installation of curbs and sidewalks on Winchester Street from Needham Street to the project limit at Center Street. And then we will continue the reconstruction work at the bridge over the Charles River. Next slide. Going on to summer and fall this year, the utility work will be continuing with the overhead wire relocations. We will start the full depth road reconstruction and the paving work along Needham Street from Columbia Ave to Winchester. We'll also start the curb and sidewalk reconstruction along Needham Street from Columbia Ave to Winchester. And the reconstruction work on the bridge over the Charles River will continue and is anticipated to be completed by the end of this year. Next slide. Back to Chuck.
Thanks, Mike. How will we keep you informed? There are many ways to keep informed about this project. Coordination with businesses, the contractor has been and will continue to meet individual businesses in advance of any disruptive work in the area. If this has not happened at your business, please contact us via the project email and we will begin coordinating with you. MassDOT can also provide signs for businesses at the entrances to indicate they are open during construction. Next slide. To contact the project team for comments, questions, or concerns, email us at Needham-Newton corridor@dot.state.ma.us. To sign up for email updates, please visit the website at www.mass.gov/Needham-Newton-corridor-project. And at this point, I would like to turn this over to Reagan.
Thanks so much, Chuck, and thanks for the presentation, Mike. Before we move into public comment, I do want to invite anyone, any state, city, or elected officials to speak at this time. You can use the raised hand feature so we can mute and unmute you. Let's see. So again, I will just say that if you are not an elected official, if you could lower your hand, that would be great. And any elected officials. So I think Robert Deutsch, Kyle, can you unmute Robert?
Hi.
Hi
Hi.
there. Hi, can you hear me? Can you?
Yes.
Yes, hello.
Hi. Town meeting member precinct J of Needham. Does that count?
I'm sorry?
I said, does that count for elected
Yes,
officials?
yes,
Yeah.
you're fine. Thank
Good.
you.
All right. I don't want to break protocol so early. One of the questions I had is specifically about the neighborhood that I wrote to the group about, but it's the intersection of Highland Ave and Riverside and Highland Terrace, this neighborhood called Riverside Park. I don't know exactly to whom I'm addressing my question to. Can you help me?
So
Reagan?
Yeah, no, I will direct it to the person. So is the question of, do you have a specific question about that intersection?
Yes, well, yes. So,
So-
you know, we're obviously the road improvements and everything is hugely impressive in its scale.
Mhm.
But there need to be, or there appears to need to be some kind of new traffic calming measure at our intersection, because even as the road has been redone now, and it for practical purposes is now 4 lanes where it was 2.5. It's increasingly difficult to get out of either side of this neighborhood onto Highland Ave. We spoke with the Department of Transportation 2 years ago.
Mhm.
And they said that white painted boxes would be a traffic calming measure, but they have become hard to see, and I don't think they're wildly successful. So my question was, how would we approach adding something to that area to provide additional safety?
Okay.
I think in the beginning, Charles talked about safety being a huge thing.
Yeah. So I'm gonna actually, Chuck, I don't know if you're able to answer this question.
Yeah, I think it's appropriate to start back up the conversation and with you folks and talk with our traffic and safety people to see what other tools we have in our belt to help with the situation. There's two issues. There's an interim condition before we get
Sure.
to final, and then how we address final condition before we complete the project and
Great.
demobilize. So we've obviously received your email, so we'll probably be reaching out soon to have another meeting with the neighborhood.
Okay, thanks.
All right, thank you so much for your comment. And we'll follow up. Okay, so I think Counselor Crosley has her hand raised. Kyle, can you unmute the counselor?
Am I unmuted?
You are. Welcome.
Oh, thank you for recognizing me. I put a question in the chat because I wasn't sure you were seeing me. I'm on my iPhone. So first of all, thank you for this. And I think it would be helpful to hear two things. One, I'm very interested in the Northland project. I think they're moving along nicely, but everything in construction is slow these days. Could you speak to, from your point of view, coordination along that stretch of Needham Street, and particularly with respect to utility placement? I know they've been working very hard to coordinate with you. And secondly, it would be helpful to me to hear just in broad strokes what your expected timeline is with respect to a few key, I know what's been accomplished to date, but what are a few key markers we might look forward to, and then project completion, assuming things go reasonably smoothly?
Sure. So I think it's a two-part question. One is about coordination with the Northland project, and the other sort of with what are the key milestones and sort of overall schedule. Am I characterizing that accurately? I think.
Yes, please.
Okay. So Chuck, I'm going to start with you, but feel free to direct this to anyone else who should answer this question.
Certainly. So as you noted, we are in communication with Northland on their progress, and as it conflicts with our work and with our roadway, not conflicts, but as they enter the roadway space and not their property, we're less concerned what goes on their property. But in this season, they'll be getting a sewer work tie-in, which will include lane taking in that section of the road. So they'll be spending some time, a month or two, to tie in the sewer work. And they've also engaged the power company and the communications companies to install more underground conduits crossing it, Christina, basically all in front of their property. So there will be increased roadway impacts in that section of roadway this year from the utilities to enable their construction, from, as I said, the power and the communications. And that's what we see basically as the additional impacts or any other impacts in the roadway with them. We expect all the rest of their work to be contained to their site, other than increased truck traffic, construction vehicle traffic, things like that. And second,
But from your point of view, may
Yeah.
I just follow
Yeah,
up? From your point of view, are things feeling well coordinated in that respect with the
Yeah, it's
Northland
not-
project?
we do. They've been good to work with from our perspective so far, and it's timing up good with our work. We're going to be up at Winchester Street for at least a good half of this construction season, or all of it. So we're going to be up by Route 9, Winchester, the beginning of Needham Street at the lumber yard. And they will be closer to, where their property is. So the significant separation that we're not conflicting with each other in the roadway. So we're happy that that is timing out good for us, for everybody.
And I think the counselor just also asked about the schedule, Chuck, if we want.
Yeah, so second, it's kind of what I was talking about, what I view kind of the major milestones is the roadway will be reconstructed, all of Winchester Street, and we will begin progressing from Winchester to the river bridge this year. We anticipate making it most of the part of the way down Needham Street, reconstructing the roadway, reconstructing the sidewalks. So that, you know, by the end of this year to have a third of Needham Street done would be a milestone. And then in the 24 season, we expect to complete the roadway reconstruction to the bridge, and the intersection reconstruction will take up the 24 season to the completion of the job at the end of 24.
All right, thank you,
Okay,
Chuck.
thank you.
Thank you, Counselor. I also want to take a moment to recognize Counselor Downs from Newton, who did post in the Q&A, thanking us for the presentation and the work on the street. And we want to thank the counselor for attending tonight. Okay. I also want to mention there have been a few questions in the chat about whether or not this presentation will be available after the meeting. It will. It will be posted on the project website. We typically send an email out to folks once it is posted. So you will get that if you are on our mailing list. All right, I see a few other hands still raised. I'm assuming you're either staff or local elected officials. If you could just identify yourself when we recognize you. So Sue Scholar, Kyle, if you could unmute. Sue, you should be able to speak now. Sue?
Unmute.
Oh,
I'm
there you
unmuted.
are. Yes, we can hear you now.
Okay, I had a stupid question and I didn't realize I'd put my hand up, so you can pass to someone else.
It's okay. While your hand is up, so we'll take it. It's not a problem. What was your question?
I was just questioning the orange wires that seem to be going up. I don't upper wires that I'm seeing
Sure.
on our Newton side of the
Okay.
bridge.
Yeah, so when the power company, the top of the pole is the transmission wires, the high voltage wires. Believe it or not, they work on those live most times. They work in and around them as live wires. So they typically wrap them in rubberized blankets that are orange. So they wrap them while they're working around them for safety, a safety measure to not accidentally bump into them.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you both. All right. I see William Baird has his hand up. Kyle, can you unmute William?
Okay, here I am. Hi, my name is William Baird. I live on Needham Street overlooking the Charles River Bridge. And by the way, can you hear me okay?
Yep.
Great. So I overlook the bridge. I'm a former emergency medical services supervisor in another state and have observed several times. First, to give background for the other listeners, every town in Massachusetts is required to have a mutual aid agreement with neighboring towns so that if all of their fire trucks are in use, the neighboring town can respond into their town to take their call if there's an additional call. So Needham is one of those agencies for the city of Newton. And it appears that Needham Street is a commonly used street when they have those calls. I've observed, my office faces the bridge, and I've observed at least 2 times where the response of the fire department was slowed by several minutes, as much as several minutes, while there was some rapid moving around of people to try to create space for the fire truck to get by past the various cones and obstructions and so on. And what I'm wondering, getting to my question, is there a plan for there to be ongoing discussion between the 2 fire departments or between the DOT and the Needham Fire Department so that there is a game plan for the construction team to help the fire trucks get through when they need to get through for an emergency?
Thank you. Chuck, I don't know if you want able to respond to that question.
Yeah, I would expect the 2 fire departments to be communicating as they normally would, without our help. But in construction, we make sure to, especially daytime, to always allow travel in both directions to never be closed, aka no detours. Typically, when we coordinate with fire departments is when there's a road closure or the bridge needs to be out for a certain amount of time, and we meet with them to talk to them about staging trucks or coordinating with other towns. To date, we haven't had any complaints from the fire departments. We meet with them to coordinate they have communications wires that obviously communicate with the commercial buildings and the alarms throughout the corridor. So we certainly talked to both of them and have been throughout the project. Haven't received any specific complaints about delayed response time due to construction, and we would certainly take that very seriously. So if that was a major issue for them, we'd expect them to voice that concern, I guess I'd say.
Thank you, Chuck. I think with that, it looks like we've hit all the elected officials. So Matt, can you go to the next slide, please? So I do want to enter the official Q&A portion of the evening, and I want to share the instructions for how this is going to go. If you would like to share a written comment or question, please use the Q&A feature at the bottom of your screen to submit your typed question or comment. We will alternate between reading questions and comments already submitted and recognizing those who want to pose a question verbally. People who wish to share a question or comment verbally can press the raised hand button, and we will give you access to unmute your microphone when it is your turn. If you are joining us from a phone, you can dial *9 instead of using raise hand button. After you share your comment, we will lower your hand and you will then be returned to the muted state. Please speak slowly so our captioner can capture your comment. I also do want to ask folks to be brief. We have 105 members of the public here tonight, so we want to make sure that we get to everybody's questions, and please only ask one question at a time. With that, I know there's been some people who've been waiting. They've submitted questions in the Q&A, so I'm going to start there tonight. First is a question from Paul Holt asking about why the electrical is being placed underground. Chuck?
I assume that's in reference to the Northland work that they have. Why is it being underground? I don't know the reasoning, if that was a town requirement, part of the building construction, or their own. I guess I'm speculating. I don't really know the answer, whether it was their own wish to spend the money to do that, or that was a town requirement as a condition of the building.
I can answer that
Oh, okay. Councilor Crossley, yes.
if you would like. If the gentleman is questioning only the undergrounding around the Northland project, that was something that was agreed to as part of the special permit process for the project. If the gentleman is asking why aren't we undergrounding for the rest of the project, that I can't properly answer. That would be you folks.
Yeah, we've had that question come up in the past about the rest of the project, and I guess my answer is it's not typical for Mass DOT to underground wires on a roadway where they already hadn't been. It is a enormously expensive task to relocate. I believe we have 7 or 8 utilities. So it comes down to we're restoring the road and the poles that existed in lieu of many millions of dollars to underground it.
All right. Well, thank you both. Thank you, Councilor Crossley as well. So another question is about the pedestrian crossing at Oak and Christina Street. This is from Linda Green. And she's asking what improvements can be made to improve safety at that pedestrian crossing. She does have a follow-up question about whether or not traffic is being diverted into adjacent neighborhoods during construction. So I guess that's a question about detour routes.
So the Oak and Christina intersection is new. So we'll have to take that. I don't believe we proposed. I take that back. There will be changes to the signalization there. I don't know them offhand, but if that's a question in the interim, there were no plans to change the pedestrian timing and the intersection timing in construction, but I believe it will be changing in the in the final condition. It's very dangerous during the time of day. Improvements made in MODEC. That's something we can definitely investigate.
Okay,
The
great.
safety condition of that intersection.
All right. Thank you, Chuck. Thank you, Linda. And Chuck, do you know if any of the detours, if there are any project detours that will go into neighborhoods during construction?
Yes, the bridge will have to be out for sporadically as construction proceeds. So that detour is to Christina Street and around, I'm sorry, Oak Street. So that is one detour I know of. I don't have it actually. If Eric Feely, do you mind fielding? I'm less familiar with the exact detour streets. If you don't mind. Okay, can you unmute?
Yeah. Can you guys hear me okay?
Yes,
Yep.
Eric. Thank you.
Thanks.
Okay.
Eric works for DOT. He's part of the project team.
Chuck, yeah, I agree. The major scheduled detour would be a couple nights at the bridge to set panels with a crane. So that's the detour you're talking about. So coming from Newton, they would be detoured down Oak Street and around that way. And coming in the opposite direction from Needham, they would be detoured to First Avenue and around that direction to get back to Newton. So that's the only major scheduled detour we have at this time. There's none other in the plan set, but we can always look at, what traffic setups might be the most efficient way to get the upcoming work done.
Was it First Ave or Second Ave?
Either one can be used.
Okay.
First Ave is more of a direct artery, so we would tend to choose that if we can.
Okay.
Great. Thank you both. Appreciate that. I'm going to turn to some folks who've had their hands raised. Marcella Marino. Kyle, can you unmute Marcella?
Hi, everyone. Thank you so much. Can you hear me okay?
Yes, you're all set.
Okay, great. No, thank you. Appreciate the time and the opportunity. I just want to share that and actually ask what's the plan for crosswalks around Winchester Street? The reason is that I take my son there for daycare, and also there's other school in addition to the Newton Highlands Park, and it's extremely dangerous, that area. In the fact that there's also kids crossing at any time. So I'm curious to see what's the plan in terms of crosswalks for that specific street. So I guess the Winchester area. So
Right.
I'll pause here and appreciate any updates you can provide. Just to give you an idea, I mean, every day I go, the intersection, there's cars
Yeah.
coming from everywhere. There's like a park in front of it. It's like an accident waiting to happen. So I get a little bit anxious about that intersection. So I want to know what's.
Yeah,
happening.
of course. Chuck, do we have any information about that intersection?
Yeah, so in the interim, we've added temporary crosswalks to try to help, but I agree, it is a dangerous area, especially for children. The final design, some of you have seen it. We're working on signalized intersections, including crosswalks, to go on either side of the Route 9 bridge. So to cross at that location, you'll use the intersection that we're putting in on either side. So that should be immensely more safe than the current condition. Everyone will be stopped. Cars won't be an issue.
Thank you, Chuck. Thank you for your comment. I'm going to go back to the Q&A. And Alan Beth says they noticed a traffic light installed at Route 9, and when will that be turned on?
Yep, that's what I was referring to. So that is should be completed and activated late spring, early summer.
Great, thank you. And Ginny Fairley, apologies, is asking about what type of signal will be at the, if there is a signal, will be at the intersection of Tower Road and Needham Street.
I'll call on Eric again. So sometimes I get my streets mixed up. He's our field guy day to day, so he knows the area very well.
Hey, Chuck, I believe we don't affect the signalization at the Tower Road, Needham Street address. I believe the only added signals are Charlemont at Needham, and then the two you mentioned down on either side of Route 9, the Winchester Center Street area.
Great, thank you both. A question from Ankit Mishra. What is the project limit at Center Street in Newton? Does it extend all the way to Walnut Street?
It does not. This is Eric again. Sorry.
Okay, no, go for it, Eric.
It does not extend all the way to Walnut Street. It actually doesn't even extend all the way to the next four-way intersection. It stops. I don't have a great reference point for you, but basically just where the Route 9 off-ramp meets Center Street, like maybe 20, 30 feet past that point is where our paving limits are, or thereabouts. So we won't be affecting those intersections.
Great, thank you, Eric. I'm going to turn back to folks with their hands raised. Sylvia Hutter has had her hand raised. Kyle, can you unmute Sylvia? Sylvia, are you able to unmute yourself? We are having difficulty hearing you. You there? It looks like you're muted. So Sylvia, if it seems like there's a challenge hearing you, if you want to put your comment or question in the Q&A, that will work. Otherwise, we will maybe try to circle back later in the meeting and see if the technical issues are resolved. All right, I'm going to go back to Q&A. Joanne Sweeney would like a little bit more details about the timeline and areas impacted in terms of the different parts of Needham Street. And I don't know if we want to go back to the slides that Mike presented in terms of the spring work and the summer work. Does that make sense, Chuck, to go back to those slides? I know a few people in the chat are actually asked some schedule questions as well.
Sure.
So might be, Matt, do you mind going back to those slides for a bit? So I think, yeah, I think the spring work So Mike, I don't know if you want to answer this or if Chuck wants to in terms
Yeah,
of,
it's fine. I mean, you're gonna see, it's hard to, it depends on what specific impacts. Our contract, roadway reconstruction is one of the most impactful things we can do, ripping the road out. So that is Winchester Street, that's this spring and into the summer, and then proceeding west from that intersection at Wexford and Dedham and Needham, moving down Needham Street. So that is the bulk of all our work. And as I said, Northland will be trenching the roadway for their utilities in front of their property. So you'll see activity there. At the same time, you'll see bucket trucks of utilities relocating overhead wires throughout the stretch of Needham Street. So our work, Winchester Street, several hundred feet down Needham Street from the intersection will be this spring and summer and fall, this construction season. And the next construction season, we anticipate completing the roadway reconstruction of Needham Street to Oak and Christina.
thanks, Chuck. And I think that should answer, a lot of people had some of the questions because they either arrived a little bit late or we went through it a little too quickly. So thank you for reviewing
Yeah,
that
and
again.
that's our best guess. We actually anticipated starting there first on the job and things change in construction. So seems to be the clearest path forward for us building this project.
Okay, great. Matt, do you mind forwarding the slides? It can go to that final slide with the project contact information as well. I'll note really quick, there's a comment in the Q&A about tree pruning, but I'm not sure what the question is. So if the person who submitted that wants to resubmit, if it's a full comment or question, it didn't come through. I'll also note that Josh Ostroff from the city of Newton has requested to see renderings for the separated bicycle accommodations at the intersection of Needham and Winchester. I assume that we can follow up with Josh separately on this.
Yeah, we have renderings, and tree pruning is right now complete on the entire project. That's one of the first things we get out of the way. So we don't anticipate anymore. I'm not saying something might come up, but there should not be any more pruning on the project.
Wonderful, thank you. There is a question about bus shelter installation. Do we know about if there's been any progress or movement on that issue? This is from Sean Roach.
I do know that's an open discussion between MassDOT and MBTA, and that's outside of this project once complete. I don't know the status of it, but I know it's definitely on their radar, and it is they know it's a need and a want to provide bus shelters once we reestablish the new locations, but it will not be part of this project.
And I do want to jump ahead because as we're talking about Newton staff here, Ginny Fairley, who is the ADA coordinator for Newton, asked if the design of the sidewalk and bike lanes will include the tactile pressed concrete separation between the sidewalk and the asphalt bike lane.
We have a detectable pattern. We had a lot of discussions with our ADA folks and Newton and Needham. It's not a tactile strip. Those are reserved, and their purpose is to be at grade changes and entering the roadway. So they'll remain at the accessibility ramps when you get on and off the sidewalk through the intersections. There is a design, a stamped concrete design that will help, the visually impaired people from staying on the concrete versus into the bike path. So that feature that you see in Needham that exists today, part of what we've completed, will be replicated in Newton. Yes.
Great, thank you. I am going to check back with Sylvia, who still has her hand raised, to see maybe if her technical difficulties have resolved themselves. Kyle, can you try unmuting Sylvia one more time? Sylvia, are you able to unmute yourself? Okay, seems not. All right, so Beth Budner has a question about the crosswalks. It's sort of a general question about making crosswalks safer, but specifically talking about Columbia or Charlemont streets.
So Charlemont will be signalized. So that'll act as a normal signalized crossing intersection. I think the safety concerns are at non-signalized intersection crossings. So you see some temporary ones out there now. The permanent condition has, I think, what they call rapid flashing beacon. You push the button, it strobes the vehicles to stop that there's a pedestrian who is requested to cross there. So that feature will be installed with signage and a light. And I believe that's at Tower. We have 1 or 2 of those on the project. So if it's not a signalized intersection where cars are at a red light, there will be this feature of a rapid flashing beacon to bring attention to the drivers to slow down and that there's a pedestrian about to enter the roadway.
Okay, thank you. George Kirby is asking about the intersection of Winchester and Needham streets, and says that his understanding is it will not be hosting bike lanes. And he's concerned about bicycle safety in that area because of heavy traffic. And he's asking if there are other alternatives has been explored to help cyclists avoid passing through that intersection. And he said, oh, I just missed it. It says hint, allow Curtis Street to access the Upper Falls Greenway.
So the bikes are up on the sidewalk on Needham Street. I don't know, I guess maybe Marie, do you think you can handle this one? I'm unfamiliar exactly with the markings and how the functionality for bikes is at that intersection.
Sure. Hi, everybody. I'm Marie Sullivan. I work for Stantec, and I am the designer of record for this. The intersection at Denham Street and Winchester Street is extremely tight. So we're bound by the cemetery on the corner. So we had limited space. So instead of having a separate bike lane and sidewalk, we made a shared use lane so it's the same elevation as a sidewalk, but the peds and the bikes will share that space. So it's an 8-foot sidewalk through there, and there are crosswalks for the bikes that are in the bike lane on Needham Street to cross at this designated crosswalk and get up on the sidewalk and then travel down the sidewalk until you get to Route 9. There just wasn't enough width to have the separated bike and ped in that area, just because it's extremely tight.
Thank you both. Appreciate that. Some folks actually didn't get to hear my spiel earlier, but the slides and the recording of this meeting will be posted on the project website. And we typically send an email out to our mailing list once it's available to share the links. So it does take a few days usually, and we ask for your patience, but it will be made available. Okay. So there's a few comments from people who've already asked questions. So I want to jump to some people who haven't asked a question yet. Carol Kong says, I live on Center Street and I'm one of the residents where some of the land is being taken by eminent domain. Construction has been done on my property at 7:30 a.m. and we don't find out that it is happening until we hear the work being done outside. This is challenging because I work from home. Is there a schedule that I can receive so we know that this is happening at my house? Can I be notified ahead of time to make alternate working arrangements? Chuck, are we able to coordinate with Carol more directly about the work?
Yeah, we certainly can. So I guess we'll have to take note of the address.
Yeah, Carol, if we'll
Or-
make a note if the email address you registered with is not the right email to use, can you email us? Otherwise, we'll use the email address you registered for the meeting with and we'll follow up with you directly. Okay. Just trying to make sure that we're getting to all of the people who haven't. Maria Canelius is asking, what are the plans with the cemetery on Winchester Street, specifically repairs to the wall and fencing?
The cemetery walls and fencing are not part of the scope for the project, so they're to remain as is.
Okay, thank you. Okay, I think we've answered everybody's first questions once, and I do know we have some time, so I think we'll go through some of the follow-up questions, Chuck. So there is a question about the timing of the crosswalk at Winchester Street, when that will be available. And if there are, and actually, this is from Marcella, and she actually has another question too about the current crosswalks need painting and better visibility. And I guess there's a question about, is there any interim plans before new installations are happen?
No, so we, as we come out of winter, and temperatures allow us to refresh in not just crosswalk lines, but any lane lines, anything that got patched over from the winter. It's very typical. One of the first things we're gonna do is refreshing everything on the roadway. So that those temporary crosswalks will definitely be high in the priority list to attack when temperatures allow the paint to be installed on the roadway. So that's the interim plan. I guess Mike or Eric, I don't want to speak too out of turn. I was saying late spring to activate those signals, early summer. Is that I just want to make sure I'm being accurate as possible.
Yeah, I would say certainly more summertime. Early summer would probably be a better guess.
Great. There is a request to have a single page document with the progress quarter by quarter. I know, Chuck, you alluded earlier that there's a lot of moving parts on this project, and I don't know if that's possible right now because of all the coordination and things, but I will ask the question.
To provide an update on a quarterly basis.
No, like a document right now that shows like what it's going to look like for the rest of the project quarter by quarter, what the work is going to be. Like a look ahead for the rest of the project.
Yeah, we could certainly give our best guess with the information we have now. I do think it's somewhat linear as we go down the road. I just don't know how quick, or something might delay us, as always happens in construction. It's certainly something we could do though.
Okay. So maybe at our next sort of update on the project that we send out, we could include some of that information. We'll look to do that. So again, and this will be my pitch for if you haven't signed up for the email updates, please do so. And we have the links here as well. So I'm sorry. So Ankit Mishra is asking, it's talking about Center Street is a densely populated area and very heavy vehicles keep plying this route, not only during daytime, but pretty late at night at high speeds. Is there a plan to limit their run time? There's something similar already in action on the Winchester Street stretch beyond the intersection with Needham and Dedham, wherein heavy vehicles aren't allowed between 8 p.m. and 7 a.m.
So that was related to snow removal equipment and salt trucks.
Possibly, but I think Ankit's concerned about that. I don't know if it's part of this job, but about heavy vehicles in this area late at night. And I guess there's a question if there's any time restrictions on that for this project. I know there's a lot of projects going on in the area too.
I don't know about any general commercial truck restrictions. I don't see any signs. I don't believe it is restricted. And yeah, as far as our maintenance, the DOT maintenance of the roadway, that will happen as snow dictates, basically as weather dictates. So I don't anticipate that changing from the DOT vehicles that need to clear the roadway.
Thanks. Martina Jackson's asking when the next update will be on the project.
We hadn't discussed it as a team yet. We're kicking this one off in the construction season. In years past, we've done kind of like a fall update. We're open to doing them as necessary, as the community feels like they'd benefit from an update on our project and any information to help get through, a difficult, disruptive project for sure.
And I think, Chuck, also we had discussed doing some more frequent email updates as well, even between these sorts of meetings.
Yeah, so I think this year especially immensely disruptive through Newton and the number of abutters and businesses definitely warrants us to be more consistent with outreach and updates, things like that. I will say too, it wasn't part of this presentation, but to people at Center Street, to be completely transparent, there is another Center Street, Winchester Street, the Route 9 bridge, not part of this project, but a MassDOT maintenance project is going to be starting sometime this year to repaint that bridge, perform steel repairs, and fix the safety railing on Route 9. So I just wanted to use this forum to let people know that that work will be happening. And it's anticipated to be a month or two, probably 2 or 3 months to be conservative. Painting, sandblasting the bridge can be somewhat noisy, so we've opted to do daytime as opposed to nighttime and disrupting everyone's sleep. So that project will be starting sometime in the spring, hopefully.
Thank you, Chuck. So it looks like we have 2 questions sort of from the same person left in the Q&A and 1 person with their hands raised. So I'll take this opportunity to sort of say if anyone else has any other questions that haven't been answered, you might want to put that in the Q&A or raise your hand now. But first I will do the Q&A and then I will recognize Ben, who has his hand raised. So in the Q&A, William Hager has 2 questions. One, a comment that the Christina Oak Street crossing was better with the timed light at each cross street, and why was that changed? And then his other question is, what is the timeline for the use of Winchester Street as a bypass, and will they be able to leave their driveway during that time?
So the Oak Christina, I assume, so they're saying timed versus motion activated, I think is what that's referring to.
I think so, yes.
For each cross street side. So Oak and Christina Street was constructed before this project. We are tying into that intersection, obviously, and with our intersections all through Newton and tying into other intersections going back to I-95, we're installing, I forgot the product lingo, but I'll call it an intelligent traffic system that is not timing and is not just triggered on censoring, but they've become advanced enough to recognize traffic patterns at multiple intersections in a row and learn how to move vehicles most efficiently through the corridor. So they'll finally all be talking to each other. So it won't be just timed, which obviously has many flaws. We know when there are random peaks in traffic on holidays, things like that. So it should be adjusting and updating in real time to meet the demands of the side streets and the main line, and balance those out as effectively as it can.
And the follow-up was the timeline for using Winchester Street as a bypass.
I guess I don't understand using it as a timeline to use Winchester Street as a bypass. We'll be able to leave our driveway. We'll be able to leave driveway during this time. Yeah, so we at every driveway on our project, we have to maintain reasonable access for any property owner. So that might be messy at times. It might have to be on gravel, but that's part of the coordination as we move our way through the corridor and by specific driveways to work with you, whatever the needs may be, if it's commercial with trucks coming in, if it's a private access for small passenger vehicles, to negotiate access and give you a timeline and tell you more specifically about the impact to your driveway. But it is never our intent to trap somebody in the driveway as we're constructing the road.
Thank you, Chuck. I will turn to Ben Daniels, who has been patiently waiting with his hand raised. Kyle, if you could unmute. You should be able to speak now.
Oh, hello, can you hear me?
Yes. Hello.
Okay, good. I have a two-part question which they're related.
Okay.
Number one is it's the first, the raised bike lane starting at Webster Street, heading down towards Hunting Road. I've honestly seen more cars accidentally drive on that bike lane than I've seen bicycles, including a Needham police officer. And I was wondering if you had any plans of doing anything to make it more clear that that is a bike lane. And it is very confusing. I admit I did it myself, and I've seen numerous cars do it. It is confusing until you understand it, that it is not a driving lane, that it's actually a bicycle lane. And the second part related is since they've done this, there seems to be more cut through traffic, cutting on where cars are wanting to turn, go down Hunting down to Greendale. And with the raised bike lane, there's, and I think, my opinion, it would have been better if they'd made a turn lane there, but they didn't. And cars will end up in this long line, waiting to turn at Hunting. They'll end up cutting down Utica or Mill, and then they drive very fast through the neighborhood. I live on Sachem on the other side, but there are a lot of people there with children, and people drive very fast when they're, cutting through, trying to get to Hunting. And I'm wondering if you have any plans to try to minimize that. I mean, we've heard about that from Needham as part of the Muzzy project, but nobody's done anything. And just to say, the cut through got much worse since the time about 10 or 15 years ago. The state put a no U-turn sign up at the corner of Hunting and Highland Ave coming from Newton. And since then, coming that way, people also make cut throughs trying to turn around. So those are my questions. And I'm wondering if you have any plans to address any of these things.
Okay. So Chuck, you want to take the bike lane first?
Yeah, so I admit I did the same thing you mentioned everyone else is doing, and I know the project intimately. So we recognize that as an issue for sure. It's tricky geometry coming over the hill that I think sneaks up on people. So it's definitely something that's going to be monitored. We're going to be adjusting the lane markings through the intersection to hopefully guide people away from that. We have other things we can do and install plastic posts in the way to to alert them of a obstacle ahead. So we are again waiting for the good weather here in the spring to at least implement some new lane markings, monitor that situation, potentially add posts. And off the top of my head, I don't know other things we can do, but it's high on our radar, something we don't want to leave in its current condition, whatsoever. As far as Hunting Road, so cars are queuing up and then cutting down Utica and Mills. I don't know if we restore that no U-turn sign. That's something we could look into. It sounds like maybe you thought that would mitigate some of the issue, some of the backup or the cut through. As far as traffic stacking up and hitting side roads, we could look at that. That's a difficult one to I guess there could be signage on those roads indicating to not use it as a cut through to local traffic only. That's always a tough one when it's enforcement of cars speeding and breaking the law and cutting through, and when they're irritated with the excessive traffic. But that is we'll note the signage. We'll review the signage at those side streets in the intersection.
Thank you, Chuck. So there looks to be two final comments, one from Josh Ostroff from the City of Newton, echoing Councillor Downs and thanking the project team, noting it's a challenging job. And he also wanted to acknowledge the abutters who have borne much of the impact, and says that he hopes you will all enjoy the finished project. So thank you, Josh. And then a question from Jane Hanser, asking about crosswalk paint, whether or not, is it true that it can only be in black and white, because she's seen communities in Massachusetts that have crosswalks that use colors, and if the team can comment upon that.
I believe the guidance is just to create a stark visual contrast to the pavement. So the DOT standard, we don't get too creative and we use white. So if you had another bright color, I think that's why that's used, and it's just a town or community preference. But the DOT's, standard is just white. There are spots on the roadway you'll see green, high friction visible bike paint, but there's no part of this plan as it currently stands to do anything other than plain old white.
Right. So thank you. I want to thank everyone for their comments and the thoughtful input onto the project. I know the team has been taking notes and will take all of this in. I'll remind you all again that if you have additional questions about the project, you can visit the website, which is on screen, and I think Kyle may repost it again in the chat. And that if you have questions or to report work-related issues, you can email us at Needham-Newton corridor@state.ma.us. And with that, Chuck, I'll turn it over to you for some closing remarks.
Yeah, I just want to say thank you to everybody. We fully recognize this is a very impactful project. The community, both Needham and Newton, have been really good to work with so far. And we want to make sure your concerns are heard. A lot of the time, it might not be the best answers we give you. We try to do, the DOT team and GEOSO, we'll try to do our best to work with you guys. And like I said, everyone's been understanding of the process so far. So we'll, as we said, do a better job to communicate this year. The updates and impacts, and certainly, like I said before, if you don't feel like you're getting the attention that you deserve, please reach out, because we don't want to be known for ignoring any person, anyone, a butter along the corridor. So thank you for your patience, and I guess we will wrap it up, Reagan.
So I'll note that there is one final question here that someone asked about the wires underground, which I think we answered that question earlier, but I did want to note that it just came in.
Yeah, I don't really know how to.
Yeah,
The question is
I
more
think,
about the wires underground. Is it something you could expand on that specifically?
yeah, just want to make sure we hit every question. I'm not sure what this question is. So I'm not seeing anything. All right, I think with, oh, so we do have a hand raised. So I'll just, we'll call on one final person and then we'll end the meeting then. Kyle, can you unmute Kimberly, please?
Hi, sorry. I just wanted to state, so I'm not an official with Needham at all, but I work for the town of Needham in the DPW.
Oh,
And
hi, Kimberly. I'm sorry. I should
quite all right.
recognize your name.
That's quite all right. I just wanted to put out there that when people were asking about information and updates, I know that the majority of heavy work is largely complete in Needham. So it's not as applicable now, but we made it a point to post any roadway construction impediments or any activities that might have impacted traffic in any way in Needham on our construction alerts through our DPW pages, which many of our residents subscribe to, so they get notices every week. So it was updated every week, and DOT was really good about giving us the information ahead of time, letting us know overnight closures or night work and things of that nature. So we tried to get that information out as soon as possible. And like I said, Eric, Chuck, the whole team, Mike, all those guys were really communicative about it at the time. Unfortunately, construction happens in difficult situations, and the COVID thing didn't help. So things kind of got a little off kilter, but look to your town websites for updates. Other than just waiting to receive something specifically from the DOT, many times I'm sure Newton has something similar where they update what's going on in town as far as traffic impairments and things of that nature. So that was all I just wanted to put out there.
That's a good point, Kimberly. And we've got a question in the Q&A about the specific pages on. Is it on the Needham DPW page or is it a different page?
It is. If you go to needhamma.gov, you can go to, it's actually under the Public Works page. So under Public Works, and there's a tab at the bottom of it that says construction alerts, and construction alerts are posted weekly.
Thank you so much. I appreciate that. And I know, Chuck, we're also going to work with Newton as well on those impacts.
Yep.
Yes, Chuck's nodding.
Yeah, we've been
Great.
coordinating with the towns and Kimberly and everyone at Newton Engineering have been great to work with. So we'll continue coordinating with them weekly. And so if they filtered concerns through some of the residents down to us, which we've addressed, and they certainly make sure that, you know, your voices are heard and we address them.
All right. So thank you for the final questions. And Chuck, I will let you end the meeting again.
Okay. Well, again, just thanks everybody. We appreciate you taking the time tonight, and please don't be shy reaching out. All right. Thank you.